Our friend Scott Eggleston is back with us today.
Yes, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Universally loved director of movies like Bad Bones and the upcoming Theater of Pain.
Yeah.
And I was talking about, it was Raj time. We needed to do a movie that I just love. And so Scott said, this looks like really creepy 70s sleaze. I'm in. And so he's here.
Oh, my Lord.
So we're talking about the Mutations. And as usual, Gene, where are you at with the Mutations?
I was thinking while I was watching this thing, because usually I watch it on Amazon Prime. Well, first of all, I tried to pull it off of Apple TV. They didn't even have it, which is kind of a bad sign.
Because it's a rare gem.
It's
hard to find.
So I went to Amazon, and it was there, and it was free. So it was great. But usually Amazon, because they've gone to their model now, is their free movies or their Amazon that are non-Amazon picks. I guess you have to watch commercials. Mm-hmm. So I was expecting to watch some commercials. I was okay. But I watched the whole thing, and there were no commercials, and that was like telling me something. It's like this movie is so old that nobody even really cares. And I was thinking, it's like, how many people on this entire planet have been watching this movie? It's probably just me. I bet I'm the only one on this entire planet who have been watching this movie within the last. Well, us three right here are probably.
Yeah. I watched it on Amazon as well.
Yeah, the only people who have watched this movie in the last few years, maybe.
It's possible.
Possible, yeah. But it's just I don't even know what to say. I'm just like well, first of all, it's just some parts were just so funny. It's like the beginning chase sequence at the beginning where the lady's going through a park, and then she sees like these little people, and then she starts running, and then they pop
for no
up,
apparent reason.
And they pop up behind trees, and then she's running in terror, and then this big, tall, malformed guy who has acromegaly or whatever, he captures her because I guess he's super strong. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this movie reminded me of like some certain Star Trek episodes, and it reminded me of The Island of Dr. Moreau, and yeah.
You're giving it way too much credit.
Comparing it to those. I'm actually glad you brought up Star Trek, because you did catch the fact that Michael Dunn is in this, and he was in a Star Trek episode.
I didn't catch that part, but that's a good little gem.
He was also in Wild Wild West, right? He was the villain. He was the recurring Dr. Loveless.
Yeah.
You guys are awesome. I love that show when I was a kid. I love watch it all the time. Yeah, but the Star Trek episode where the creature that ate salt. Mm-hmm. And they had that particular look, the big mouth, and the woman who got turned into the plant creature she looked a lot like
the
that.
Lizard lady.
Yeah, the lizard. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So the basic premise.
Wait! I haven't given a judgment yet.
I think we know what your judgment is.
And also, this movie doesn't waste any opportunity to show a naked breast. It's just for no good reason.
Schlock. It's
Yeah, no good reason at all. There they are.
They were getting her ready for surgery.
Oh man.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think. Well, if I think I've said this before, but if you're up late at night and you got like nothing to do and you can't fall asleep, oh my gosh, insomnia. It all happens to us sometimes. Yeah. Go to Amazon and pull up the Mutants. Yeah.
Mutations.
Yeah.
Mutants is an entirely different.
Yeah. Sorry, the Mutations. Yeah,
or the Freak Maker was the alternate title.
Right, the original title.
Yeah, with Donald Pleasance.
Yeah,
Donald Pleasance.
Donald, I'm in everything Pleasance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked that guy up on IMDb, and that guy's made like 1 million movies.
Yeah.
And all of them are just kind of like this one, except
he kind of went up and down. So he went from studio films to just Drek and then back again. I mean, at first I thought, John Carpenter saved his career, but he already had a very illustrious career before and after this movie.
Yeah, because he did some big ones. The Great Escape probably stands out.
Fantastic Voyage.
Fantastic Voyage, right?
The Halloween movies, of course.
You're not throwing Fantastic Voyage into schlock?
No.
Studio schlock?
No, because it did have Raquel Welch, but they kept her covered up. So
Okay.
That movie was pretty good, I thought.
But the general premise here of the Mutations is, and one of the reasons I love this movie, because I'm all about crazy doctors, scientists with crazy ideas that make no sense. So Donald Pleasance has decided that the best way for humanity to go is to create a human-plant hybrid for reasons that are very questionable. But I love this movie. But Scott, where are you at with the Mutations?
Well, I knew going in, like when you brought up the name, when I saw the name and the year, and I'd never heard of this, I thought, oh, this is 70s schlock for sure.
Yep.
Donald Pleasance was also another tip off because he's been in some really terrible movies. So I have kind of mixed feelings about this movie because I appreciate the genre. I mean, I love some terrible movies. We talked about Star Crash the other day, which isn't horror, but I love that movie because it's so dang entertaining, even though it's completely ridiculous and terrible and bad. And this movie is terrible and bad,
yes,
but it doesn't quite achieve this. It doesn't quite go far enough for me, and it's. I think it's notable for some reasons, but it's kind of a mess screenplay wise because it tries to combine these two stories of you have these little people,
which is why it's great.
You have to have the circus or the carnival. I forget what were they doing. It was a carnival, right? They were part
of a carnival
of,
show,
which is a tribute to Freaks, obviously.
Yes.
Which actually, this movie made me go watch that movie because I'd never seen it in its entirety.
How did that happen?
I don't know.
I've never seen it either.
I've always seen parts of it, and of course the ending, which was very famous. But
Scott, how did you get through film school without being required to watch Freaks?
I don't know. That's a good question. I've seen a lot of movies in film school. That wasn't one of them. Maybe because horror isn't emphasized.
Oh, right.
Typically,
yeah.
It's kind of on your own. But and that movie deserves its own podcast. So I probably shouldn't even say anything.
I have mentioned that to Gene in the past that maybe we would want to do that at some point because there's obviously a lot of controversy behind that.
Yes, it's a fascinating story behind that movie.
But this is one of the reasons I love the movie, though.
We could talk about that movie in length right now if you want.
Well, no.
It's its own show. But anyway, so it was that story, and then this other story with Donald Pleasance kind of trying to make the plant-human hybrid stuff. And then interestingly, you have Tom Baker in there, who's pre-Doctor Who Tom Baker from the 80s. Before. So, and he did a lot of like Amicus, low-budget horror in his early career. So it's kind of, even though he was the guy that was completely deformed and covered, and he didn't. Only if you knew Doctor Who from the 80s would you recognize him because he's completely covered in makeup and hats and scarves and everything, much like Doctor Who. Actually,
and his voice is very recognizable.
Yes, very very distinct.
You knew it was him right away.
So, like I said, mixed feelings. I mean, would I recommend this movie to anybody? It's kind of a curiosity, so it is interesting in that respect because it does try to do some. I always look for something that's different, but I don't think it quite goes far enough in its badness to be a recommendation for me.
Oh, well, I'm so disappointed, Scott. This movie is. I love this movie. Yeah. As I've already mentioned, I love the crazy scientist thing that has a plan that makes no sense. I love the fact that the American scientist comes over, immediately hooks up with that blonde girl, and then is also totally enamored with what Donald Pleasance is doing, while the other student is like, he's kind of a nutcase, right? But then there's great scenes in this where Donald Pleasance has this lab, and he's been trying for a long time to create this human-plant hybrid, but he's got a lot of plants in there. Yeah. One of the plants is one of the greatest practical effect plants ever.
Are you going to talk about the bunny?
The garbage can?
Yes,
yeah, the garbage
because, the upside-down garbage can with a mouth. And there's this great scene where he's petting a bunny.
And he just loves that bunny.
And then he just feeds it to this plant. But the better scene occurs later when the American scientist is in his office there looking at all of his stuff. And then Donald Pleasance pulls a bunny out, petting the bunny, and just shoves it in the thing's mouth. And he's like, I'm sorry you had to see that. And then the scientist is like, well, doesn't this defeat the whole purpose of what you're saying that, humans could live as plants and human hybrid and get all their nutrients from the sun? And you've just fed this living creature to this plant. And the guy's like, oh, well, stuff happens sometimes.
Yeah.
And so there's just, and the Freaks connection is really interesting. Because, and Scott pointed this out, where they even have this kind of birthday scene where they're doing,
party?
You're one of us, which is a key scene from Freaks. It's much better in Freaks and much creepier. But I love that they were trying to do this weird combination where you'll have a scene where you're with Donald Pleasance, something weird is happening, and then they cut to, here's stuff that's happening at the Carnival Freak Show. And I just love how it's just so schizophrenic and how it jumps around.
Oh, yeah.
And it moves, just like Gene said. It moves very quickly. It doesn't waste any time. I do love the opening scene a lot because Jean's right. She sees this little person and she immediately begins fleeing in terror, which makes no sense.
And then there's this ominous music, like something terrible is happening, like Godzilla's coming.
Right.
It's like, come on.
Well, not to mention the fact that she can clearly outrun them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
She's in no danger whatsoever.
Right.
Not only could she outrun them, she could clearly overpower them as well.
I was thinking that, and my little son, my 14-year-old son, we were watching that sequence, and I said that, she could probably just beat the tar out of us.
Right. And then I also love that she is one of the friends of the other group of 4 that you get to know, and all they ever do is go, where did she go?
Oh, right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
It's probably nothing.
Right.
And where's the police?
Right.
There's no investigation.
And they're just like, well, she's never just disappeared before. Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah. And I just love this movie so much. Donald Pleasance is just spot on with his obsession with these plants.
Yep.
Tom Baker, this is right before he became big time with Doctor Who, because he was on Doctor Who from 74 to 81.
Oh, yeah.
That was a long time.
And so this is right before he hit the big time, and just the connection. And then the practical effects of the plant human when it's finally happened.
Oh, my gosh.
Is hilarious. It just absolutely. Then there's the one random scene where he's all plant human, more plant than human. And they just throw in the random homeless guy scene where here's a homeless guy and then he's got a feed on him and stuff like that.
I'm just hungry.
And he still knows how to use a phone, too.
Right, he calls her.
Even though his hands are clearly fingerless.
Right, well, and I love that also because he uses the phone. She tells him to come over. We didn't know where you were. Get over here as quickly as you can. He gets over there, and she immediately becomes catatonic, and that's the end of her character
She faints.
arc. She just is. They have the other scene where here's the nurse. Well, let us know.
And let me just say that actress is awful. I mean, I realize that's part of the genre, but she is so bad. She makes everybody else look like this master thespians because she is just incredibly terrible.
But I would say, Scott,
but it fits in with this whole movie.
Well, but we know why she was cast in this role.
True,
right?
true. Yeah, she's pretty.
Little blonde girl, and wasn't required to act. And I also think the acting from the American Scientist is really, really poor as well.
Like the guy who shows up looking like a matinee idol, that guy, not like he's got glasses on, so he's a scientist, right?
Yeah, it's just
But he's
great.
like so muscly, wearing these like tight turtlenecks and everything.
No, this is like a student production or something like that.
Well, that's
like
the first thing. The first thing that shocked me about this movie was the Columbia Pictures logo that appeared. I was expecting like Amicus, Hammer, New World Pictures or something like that. But this is a studio, or they bought it. They probably bought it because it was only like $1 million budget, I think, at the time.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, and what did you spend $1 million on?
The garbage can plant.
Right? Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. That's a great question.
It is interesting that you point that out because the director of this film is Jack Cardiff. This was the last film he made for apparently obvious reasons, but he is a world-renowned cinematographer, and then also was Academy Award nominated for Best Director for a film called Sons and Lovers, which is a D.H. Lawrence adaptation. So he was riding the big time for a long time. This was the cinematographer for African Queen.
Yeah.
The Red Shoes, which I'm sure you saw in film school.
Yes. And he did Black Narcissus, which I saw some of in preparation for the show. And it's a beautiful, gorgeous movie, like Red Shoes. He did Rambo too, also.
No, I know. And that's the funny part is you can see.
And then what happened to him? He's doing this thing.
You can see the trajectory of his career where he's this really important guy. And then towards the end of his career as a cinematographer, he's doing Conan the Destroyer.
Oh, right.
No, wait. You love that movie.
Genre movies.
Not Conan the Destroyer. Conan the Barbarian is great.
Oh, okay.
And then Rambo, like you said, so he really was like this high point, and then it just kind of went this way. And, 1974, this is the last movie he directed. And how this movie even got made is one of the great mysteries. And this one of the reasons I love it is here's this completely insane movie that makes no sense on any level with random storylines and just crazy stuff happening that makes no sense. How did they decide to make this movie? And I'm glad they did.
It's hard to find information, too, because I noticed there was the DVD versions have commentaries. Like, he's got a commentary, I guess.
Oh, really?
But, I mean, I couldn't get the movie. I couldn't find it anywhere online with the commentary track. and I didn't have time to buy it, obviously. But I would love to hear what he has to say, considering,
Really?
like you say, he was at the high. I mean, he got an Academy Award for Black Narcissus when he was in his 20s.
Yeah.
So, like you say, he shot right to the top, and then toward the end of his, I mean, he's still working on big movies toward the end of his career, like those genre films,
Right.
but how he ended up here, I don't know. And interestingly, like from a filmmaker's perspective, this is an ugly movie. I mean, it doesn't like the way it looks, just from a cinematographer's point of view, which he is a great one, obviously, isn't pretty, especially that birthday scene, that party scene,
Right.
is not. It's just ugly, and the editing in that scene is really weird too. Like people just appear on stage and they cut to the crowd and cut back, and those people are gone. Like the pincushion guy,
Right.
He just appears and then he stabs himself and then he disappears.
Yeah.
Really strange.
No, and I think that was probably some sort of filler attempt where, hey, our movie's 76 minutes long.
Let's
We've
just
got
make it longer,
to get to 95. Because those were real sideshow attraction people, the woman
like
and
Freaks
stuff.
also.
Yeah. And so they really were playing up that homage to Freaks a little bit, but how you
The
crossed...
Freaks appeared before this?
Yeah, how you crossed that with plant-human hybrid movie.
Yeah.
I just don't
Yeah, that was
know.
a different storyline, like
Yeah.
you said, that whole thing.
Because Donald Pleasance never meets the little people or the carnival people.
No.
So he's complete. In fact, he disappears from the movie for quite a stretch.
Right.
And Tom Baker is the only kind of connecting character.
Yeah.
Maybe there was some agreement, like Pleasance had only appeared just for a few
For
scenes.
paycheck. I mean, like I say, he's been in a lot of Drek. Like, have you ever seen the Puma Man? You ever see that was an MST3K movie also, man. That oh my
Puma
gosh.
Man?
That was an Italian movie and it was just awful.
my
It was so
Lord.
bad. A superhero movie.
Well, he says awful, but it could also be viewed as great.
That's true. I don't know. Like I said, the Star Crash, Star Crash has kind of raised the bar for. You can be terrible, but you have to be entertaining. And that movie just had so many creative ideas that were just all the time.
Well, and it
shocking
had
effect.
Caroline Munro in it.
It's
too,
true.
so,
Yeah, none of the women in this movie are Caroline Munro.
No, I was actually shocked that she wasn't in this one.
She would do anything
Right.
too. Yeah, for
Well, she was
paycheck.
in Maniac of all things.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah,
You're right. You're right.
Be around.
Yeah, you guys know a lot about these movies. That's good.
Yeah. Gene, anything more to say about the Mutations?
It's in a way, it's not terrible. It really isn't. Like if you watch this movie late at night, you got nothing else going on, you're gonna walk away and you're gonna like, oh, that was pretty funny, and you might even, I don't know, watch it with your friends and have it like a drinking contest or something.
That's true.
It's
That's a
like,
perfect drinking game movie.
Yeah. So it's like it's good in its badness. It just kind of doesn't know what it's doing, and yeah. So that would be my final say on this movie.
Scott, what's your final thought?
Well, like I said, I mean, I don't know if I can completely. I guess if you're into this type of thing, yes, you will have a good time because it has all the requisite elements. One thing I kind of cracked me up at the beginning too was that it's definitely a movie where it thinks everybody is stupid because the open just goes on forever.
It does.
You have the credit sequence with all the very nice time-lapse footage, which is clearly stock footage. And then it goes into, that long monologue where it explains every kind of carnivorous plant on Earth. And then it goes into Donald Pleasance talking at length for another 5 minutes or something.
Yeah,
and just get on with it.
In a university lecture hall.
Yeah, which we've seen that scene in obviously 1,000 horror movies, where they're setting everything up.
And Animal House too.
And then it's a common setting. And then I thought it was funny. Like I did have higher hopes at the beginning because of the chase, and also in that scene where he's explaining everything. Like for no reason at the end, he like slams his binder on the podium. Remember that? Like, what is he doing? What is the point of this?
He's a mad scientist.
Yes, he's obviously cuckoo. But yeah, and it also brings up another point, like about him specifically, is that I don't know if I think he's a good actor or if he's just a type where he like plays the same exact part every time because he's so droll. He's so dry. There's like no only emotion we saw out of him in this movie at all is when the plant man thing finally grabs him and eats him, and he turns into a skeleton for some reason, like a minute.
Like 20 seconds. Yeah, and it's like all dehydrated.
Instantaneous. So I mean, I do believe he likes like. If you ever ask yourself why are these actors in these terrible movies, they like to act. They want to be working actors. So they'll take a studio project. They'll take a terrible schlocky movie because they like to work. But he's he's kind of an acquired taste, because in the right movie, like Halloween, he's really effective. And in movies like this, he's like, anybody could have played this part.
Yeah.
So,
but it was Donald Pleasance. So, But Scott's right. He clearly was here for a paycheck, because he is not really acting at all until the last scene when he has to scream a bunch.
Yeah, because it's being eaten.
Yeah.
And then
by his own creation.
Yes.
Right.
The irony. And then the Cardiff connection is obviously kind of fascinating, because you wonder, like I said, I really wanted to track down that commentary track to see how he got involved. And I mean, was he just doing this for a paycheck? Was it his last shot at directing, because he didn't after this?
Probably was.
So that would be, as a filmmaker, I'm always interested in what people are thinking when they're given.
Well, my hope is the commentary track is him talking about how great the movie is. That's what I really hope it would be. So I've got to track that down. But again, if you think you've seen everything, you haven't. The Mutations is there. Check it out for sure.
It's free.
It's free. Well, and the thing that really surprised me about it, because usually when you're digging deep into the depths of movie weirdness, the prints are just garbage. Somebody restored this thing at some point somewhere. Because,
I think it's on a Blu-ray too.
Yeah, it's just shocking how decent the film print itself is. But so check it out is my recommendation.
Which is also kind of sad, because like somebody restored this movie, but Freaks is only an hour long because it was cut down from 90 minutes and then lost.
That's
a tragedy.
It is an absolute tragedy that happened, which is one of the reasons we should probably talk about that
we should.
As a standalone.
Well, now we know what we're doing next week.
Do we really want to talk Freaks next week?
We've spent half this episode talking about it.
It's hard to
I
avoid.
kind of feel left out because I haven't seen the darn thing. So
okay,
we got to do it now.
I love when Scott's on and makes our life easy, where we now have our movie next week, because many times we don't know what we're doing.
We have no idea.
And then I have to come back.
And then you'll have to come back. Are you going to come back?
Yes,
to talk about
I want
Freaks?
to talk about that movie.
Okay.
Yeah. Make sure your daughters bring the donuts this time.
Okay.
Very good. So thanks for tuning in.
Total aside.
We will be back next week with Todd Browning's 1932
What?
Freaks.
32?
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about some 60s movie.
No, we're going way back.
Todd Browning.
Way back.
He directed Dracula, also the original Dracula. So it's an old one.
Okay.
So we will talk to you next week.
Freaks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.